I'm starting with the answer of this question just so that you see that you need to be really comfortable with when you solve for a variable where you've got multiple variables in the question. When you solve for that variable, you need to be comfortable with a really messy looking answer. Okay, this is much more true to life than equations with one variable, because typically when you're using this kind of math in the real world, you'll have multiple variables in your equation. So you need to be comfortable with it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question and show you how this works. Okay, so here we have a linear equation, right? It has multiple variables. We can see just two different variables in here, and we'll see how this works for us. Okay, now we already have it on two of the separate terms on the left-hand side. So it makes sense to keep it on that side. And we have the other variable on the right-hand side, or one of the other variables. We've got an r in here as well. We'll deal with the r separately, right? So we're going to get rid of this negative 37x here. So to do that, we add it. We do the additive inverse. So we're going to add 37x to both sides of the equation. And this is tidy in this equation for now because we actually have a term on the left-hand side that we can add it to, okay, which is really, really useful. So 37x plus 19x is 56x. So let's start right there. So we now have 56x plus rx equals just w. Okay, because we just got rid of the, it says negative 37x plus 37 plus 37x. Well, that just canceled out right there, which is nice for us. Okay, now the next thing we're going to apply, in this question we didn't have any distribution, but if you think about distribution and how you can take a coefficient from the outside of the parentheses and you can multiply it into each term inside the parentheses. If you can do that, you can always do the opposite, which is called factoring. Okay, so we can take every term inside the parentheses if you want. We can kind of create parentheses around this and say, well, let's say parentheses right here on this side. Okay, we can see that every term inside these parentheses has a common factor, and that common factor is x. So we're going to factor out that x, right? The same way as if we were to multiply it in, if we were distributing, we're actually going to divide it out, right? And what that then gives us is it gives us, so that gives us x on the outside of those parentheses, and 56x divided by x is 56, and rx divided by x is just simply r. Okay, and that's of course equal to w. We didn't touch the right hand side. All we did was factor. Okay, so the next step now is we have almost solved this. We actually have x as a coefficient. So this entire other coefficient of x, or other factor if you want, is 56 plus r. We can actually divide both sides. We can divide both sides by 56 plus r. Right, so let's take that 56 plus r right here. We're going to divide it right there. And we're going to divide the w by 56 plus r as well. Okay, and what that does on this side, on the left-hand side here, is it cancels it out. Right, so it cancels it out on the left-hand side, leaving us, so this is basically 56 plus r goes into itself once and goes into the top once, right? So it cancels it out. You're left now with x over 1, right? So that's equal, therefore x over 1, or just simply x, is equal to this big mess over here, w over 56 plus r, right? And this one, believe it or not, as a problem to look at, is actually a simpler example than some of the ones that you might have to deal with. right? But you need to be comfortable writing, writing your answers in this format. I'm going to pause there just for a second to give you guys a chance to ask any questions you might have. But I am going to do a second example. Okay, so second example real quick that you could, so that you can see it. So a second example right here. This is one that that I'm glad I got an opportunity to show you right now, actually, because this also has some distribution in it. You can see that the z in there is there's a z right inside the the parentheses, and so that is something that we have to deal with. Okay, so we're going to distribute this negative p first, right? We're going to distribute that first, so we're going to end up with negative, we're going to end up with negative PD and negative PZ, right? All we did was multiply negative P into the D and into the Z. All right, there we go. And that is equal to negative 2Z plus 59. Right, now we have a term on the left-hand side we don't want to have on the left-hand side, and we've got a term on the right-hand side that we want to have on the left-hand side. So we want to be able to flip these on opposite sides. So we're going to do that, right? Okay, so the first step on that is we're going to get rid of this negative PD by adding PD to both sides. We have nothing on the right-hand side to add the PD to, so we're just going to append it at the end. It's going to cancel out on this side here, and we're going to be left with negative PZ is equal to negative 2Z plus 59 plus PD. Right? So far, so good. Next step, let's deal with this negative 2Z. We're going to add 2Z to remove it from this side, and because we have to do the same thing on both sides, we're going to add the 2z on this side. Now notice I cannot add 2z to negative pz because they're two different types of terms. There's no p in this one here. Okay, so I have to keep it separate, and therefore I get 2z minus pz equals 59 plus pd. All right. Next step, I'm going to do what I did before in the previous example. I'm going to factor out the z's, right? I'm going to factor out the z's by putting parentheses around them and factoring out the z. So now I get z times, well, 2z divided by z is just 2, and negative pz divided by z is negative p. So the z just got removed, and I now have 59 plus pd on the right-hand side, just as it was, right? And so my final step now is to divide both sides by 2 minus p. That's going to cancel it on the right-hand side, and it's going to give me z. Sorry, going to cancel on the left-hand side, give me z, and it's going to give me this awful mess on the right-hand side, 59 plus pd over 2 minus p. Okay, and that's the whole answer right there.